much snow?
I mean,
Wow.
1 foot.
something like that, yeah.
Wow. Very
It doesn't last very long. All the Mechumim I was out here was making snowmen like this tall.
Did you ever have snow going? You were from Texas.
In Texas, we had it very rarely stuck, but yeah, so we still love it. And then where I live, we had a huge snow a couple like 11 years ago, out in the hills, and like there's no electricity anywhere, so it was like, and it was a full moon, and it was like it was amazing, just like blue hills of snow. We had Shabbos like that, just lit like 50 candles. Yeah. No electricity for like 3 days. Okay, gentlemen, the emphasis. I wanted to bring a bottle of wine, and to open up a bottle of wine that we should make l'chaim. This is a very special moment. We're starting this sefer together. To learn Derech HaShem is lo muvan me'elav. This is a very, 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 very holy sefer, very, very special sefer, and I would say entirely unique. I don't think there's anything else that is like it. Let's just talk for a couple minutes about the Ramchal. The Ramchal. Most people know the Ramchal from the sefer Masilat Yesharim. This is Shon, the Path of the Just, and he actually that's one of his later Sfarim. And also, Derech HaShem is one of his later Sfarim. The Ramchal was a very, very unique person. He was at the age of 13. He published he wrote, I don't know if he published, but his first sefer, which was Kabbalistic, and he was a scholar. He grew up in, I think, Padua, Italy, and that's where he's from. I think he was born in the very beginning of the 1700s, 1706 or something like that, and he was just this an amazing scholar. His father didn't know that he was learning Kabbalah. He was learning Kabbalah secretly. And by the time he was a bar mitzvah, he knew. We shouldn't try to emulate this. We're already past bar mitzvah age, but just this shouldn't weaken us. This should strengthen us to know that there's certain neshamas that Hashem puts in this world, that they're built for this, they're made for this. By the time he was 13, he knew the entire Zohar Baal Peh, is what the Masorah about it says, and also the writings of the Arizal. His father didn't know, and he wrote a book called Shivim Tikunim Chadashim. So we have Tikunei HaZohar, which is the most Kabbalistic part of the Zohar. The Zohar Kadosh is on the 5 books of the Torah, and then we have a couple other sections. And throughout that, there's like parts of it that are Kabbalistic, but most of it is really just like Chizuk. It's like Musar, and it's beautiful drashas, but there are a lot of Kabbalistic sections within. But then we have another section of Zohar called Tikunei HaZohar, which Rabbi Shimon wrote when he saw that the world was in a very, 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 very bad and dangerous spiritual place, and he went with some of his students into the cave, into the Idra, and they made 70 Tikunim, rectifications. And what are those rectifications? There's 70 different teachings based on the word Bereshit, all on the word of Bereshit. Right, and what's brought down is that really elevated the spiritual state of the world and really saved the world. Right, Rav Kook says that just like in the times of sometimes the world gets so in such spiritual disarray that if you're going to try to go out and fix things in a hands-on type of way, it's too far gone. That's not the way that it can be fixed at this point, and the person needs to go inside. Not outside, but inside. And he said, you see this. This is if you guys want to look this up, it's in the Mamarei Araya on the Lag Bomer. It says that like at the times of Noach, the world was so destroyed spiritually from all the evil that had gone on, that the way that the world got fixed was by Noach, this one family, going into this teva. Nobody could see. There's no videos of what was going on over there. It was just inside. It's an inner type of work. Right, and so too in the times of Rabbi Shimon, that the world was so spiritually low and destroyed because of everything. And there's it's a generation right after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash. The Romans were causing terrible havoc in the Jewish people, and the Jewish people were in a dangerously low place. So Rabbi Shimon also, he said he had to go inside. He went into a cave dafka, and that's where he fixed things by learning these deep rectifications on the word Bereshit. In parentheses, bless you, Rabbi Nachman says, I believe in the Sichos Haran, he says that there was 70 rectifications were made just on the word Bereshit, and you can make a lot more. Not just 70. And not only that, you could make all those types of rectifications for every single word of the Torah. That was just one word, Bereshit, right? So the Ramchal, not based on the Rabbi Nachman's teaching, because he there's a little bit a drop before him. The Ramchal wrote 70 new rectifications. This deep Kabbalah that he wrote for his bar mitzvah, and he also wrote like a new Sefer Tehillim, prayers, and he wrote profusely. By the time he was 16, this is actually very interesting. By the time he was 16, he was the head of a group of Ovdei HaShem in Italy, and Kabbalists, and he was 16. He didn't even have a beard yet. And there's some people that historians that say that the Ramchal didn't have a beard. Here he was a Kabbalist without a beard, right? But the reason that he didn't have a beard because he couldn't grow one yet. He was a boy still. He was 16 years old, right? You had a question about?
Oh, no.
Oh, you didn't have a question. Okay, so somewhere along the lines when he was in his I think even before he got to be age 20, he started having revelations from a Magi. A Magi is what we have passed down, that we have in the Gemara, we have a whole midrash that's based on this, is that once a person reaches a certain spiritual level, so Hashem sends him either the soul of a tzaddik from previous generation to come teach him Torah, or an angel to come teach him Torah. And he experiences that. It's a certain level of prophecy. It's not actual prophecy, but it's a certain level of prophecy, and it's specifically to learn parts of Torah. We have many tzaddikim that achieve this. We have a whole, just to understand how normative this is, that the Beis Yosef, the Shulchan Aruch of Yosef Karo, has an entire book of teachings that he learned from his Magid, from his angel. It's called Magid Meisharin, right? It's a book about this thick. It's very, very Kabbalistic, different things in Torah that he learned. He doesn't try to hide it. He doesn't try to, it's something that's very, very open. The Arizal writes about it at length in Shagil Gulim. There's lots of we have many more sources. We have a famous midrash you guys have heard of. Tana de Belial. Tana de Belial was one of our Amoraim that had constant chavrusa with Eliyahu Navi. He wrote a midrash about all the different things that he learned from Eliyahu Navi. Right? There's nobody that doubts this or questions this that this is something that happens. But because the Ramchal was so young when it took place for him, it was fairly unusual to be such a young man and to reach such a high level, and he was open about it. And that created a lot of controversy around him, and there were certain Rabbanim that came out against him, and they were persecuting him, trying to get him to stop teaching, saying they were very scared. This is around about 100 years after the Shabbatai Tzvi Yimach Shemo V'Zichro whole debacle, and so everybody was scared that he was going to stand up and say he's a new Mashiach. They came out against him, and he had lots of troubles because of it. And they made him sign in the Beis Din. They made him sign some type of agreement that he won't talk about learning from a Magi, and he won't teach Kabbalah and all these types of things. A very, very difficult and painful thing that happened. He decided, because there's so much persecution in Italy, he's going to move to Holland, where things were a little bit more open. And on the way there, he's in Germany. They gave him a hard time, and he had to sign another document. He got to Holland, and there he had a little bit more peace. And he was Rosh Yeshiva there. And he stopped writing Kabbalistic Sfarim, at least openly. And but he continued writing them privately, and he sent them to one of his Rabbanim, that they, just in case something should happen to him, or that they're going to keep on persecuting him. And he put them in a box, and he buried them, and they got lost to us. Many of his writings got lost to us. Finally at age, I think 37, he decided he's going to fulfill his dream and make Aliyah. He came to Eretz Yisrael, and he stopped in Akko. And we know very little about what he did in Eretz Yisrael. He was only here for 2.5 years, and he passed away at age 39. And so there was some type of plague, some type of illness that was going around. And he's buried. There's two different traditions about where he was buried. One is that he was buried in some village somewhere in the Shomron or in the Galil somewhere, and which today I don't know what it's called. I don't remember the name of it. And then about 150 years ago, there was a tradition among the Kabbalists that he was a Gilgul, he was a reincarnation of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva became Baal Tshuva at age 40. And he died at 39, and he spent like his whole life accomplishing and teaching, and he had unbelievable. I think the unique, outstanding characteristic of the Ramchal is just absolute clarity. Clarity, just like you don't see this kind of clarity in almost any other sefer, any other svarim, and also really the entire Torah that we have down today, we passed down to us today, is really through Rabbi Akiva. You guys know that it says Rabbi Akiva had his 24,000 students. They all died in the plague. And afterwards he got his 5 students. Rabbi Shimon was one of them, right? Rabbi Meir. And through them, the entire Torah was passed down to us. There's a famous Rashi in the beginning of Maseches Megillah that says that all of the famous rabbinic works that we have are really students of Rabbi Akiva, right? The Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was later, he was a student of Rabbi Akiva, or a student of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon is the Zohar, and he wrote some of the Midrashim. Rabbi Nehemiah, right? Rabbi Meir Balanes, all these major works really came through Rabbi Akiva. So if you think about it, our entire tradition, which there's so many rabbis, so many schools, and everything, and a bottleneck at the time of Rabbi Akiva, and it was really passed down through this very narrow section of the transmission to us through Rabbi Akiva. And so too, the Ramchal was very much about transmitting clearly Torah values and Torah teachings, but in a clear way. His whole thing was about clarifying things, right? And so, like, he was even though he wrote a lot of novel ideas, but mostly he was very much about passing things down in a pristine way that could be digestible and understandable. So they say he was a reincarnation of Rabbi Akiva. So one tradition is that about 150 years ago. I feel like I'm talking really fast. You guys with me? Are we good? About 150 years ago, there was a Sephardi Kabbalist, I forget his name, that he decided that since he was a Gilgul of Rabbi Akiva, that he really should be buried next to Rabbi Akiva. And they went and they reinterred him next to Rabbi Akiva in Tiberia. And then there's another tradition that Milechatchila, from the very beginning, he was buried next to Rabbi Akiva. I don't know. I wasn't around 150 years ago, so I can't tell you which one is true. But those are the two traditions. But according to both of them, it's pretty much an accepted reality that he was the completion of Rabbi Akiva in this world, and therefore he's buried over there. So Rabbi Akiva, if you ever go to Rabbi Akiva's kever and the top of Tiberia, so just on top of Rabbi Akiva is the Ramchal. It's a very, very special place to be. And he had family. I'm not sure what happened to him. I'm not sure that. I haven't heard about any continuation, right? Although I will say this, that in the very beginning of Parshas Noach, it says, HaShem says that Noach was an ish tzaddik v'tamim, right? And then b'dorotav. Sorry, that's not what I was trying to say. Ele toldot Noach. These are the offspring of Noach. And then it says that Noach was an ish tzaddik, right? If you're telling me the offspring, you should tell me Shem, Cham, Yafet. Why are you telling me these are the tzaddik? What does that have to do? So Rashi says, you guys probably saw the Rashi, that the ikar todotem shel tzaddikim, the main part of a tzaddik's offspring in this world is his ma'asim tovim, is his good deeds. Whether there was a book written about it or not a book written about it, nobody knew about it, everybody knew about it. The deeds that a person does, that's what we leave. That's our progeny. That's our offspring. That's our legacy that we leave in the world. Of course, we all want children, and our children should follow in our path and all that good stuff, right? But the main thing is really what he did. If you think about the Ramchal, like, we don't know what happened to his family, and maybe somebody does. I don't know. It's not really written about, but all these Sfarim. Not only that, but in his lifetime, the amount of Sfarim that were published and made available to the masses were actually pretty few. But still to this day, they're still printing new Sfarim of the Ramchal. There's a if you go down to the beginning of Har Nof, there's a shul called the Beit Ramchal, and they also have a printing publishing house there, and they're all these old manuscripts of the Ramchal, things that weren't available even 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So there's a whole new library of Ramchal teachings out in the world, right? But later in his later years, when later years he was, he didn't even live to be 40, but when he was in his late 20s, early 30s, and he was in Holland, so that's when he wrote Mesilat Yesharim, which was one of his last published last that he wrote, and Derech HaShem, and those are some of his most famous Svarim. His Kabbalistic Svarim are a little bit less learned in the world, right? But there are people that are like super Ramchal Chassidim.
This is also Kabbalistic, right?
It's very Kabbalistic, and everything that he did was based off the Kabbalistic tradition, even though in Mesilat Yesharim you don't see that at all. This sefer is really based off the Kabbalistic tradition, and so what is this sefer? That was all Ramchal. Any questions about Ramchal before we go into the sefer?
Did Rabbi Akiva have kids?
Rabbi Akiva had kids. It's a difference of opinion of who exactly were his kids. There was a one. We know that one of his sons, his name was Yoshua, and we have another Tana whose name was Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha, which means Rabbi Yoshua, the son of the bald one. And Rabbi Akiva was bald. And how do we know that? Because the Romans used to call him derogatorily. They called him the bald one, and they were always chasing him. They were, there wasn't cameras in those days, so they were looking for. They knew that he was bald, and they were chasing him, and they were, they were the divas after him. So if that's true, why would they call Rabbi Yoshua his son after the derogatory name that the Romans gave him? So some say because since he was also persecuted, since he was Rabbi Akiva's son, so they didn't want to call him Rabbi Yoshua ben Akiva. Right, so they called him Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha to try to disguise it a little bit, his identity. Right, others say no, but yeah. Okay, and just the only other thing I'll say about that, and this is totally in parentheses because it's not connected to anything we're talking about, except for reincarnations of Rabbi Akiva. There was another tzaddik that we have a tradition who was also a reincarnation of Rabbi Akiva, and that's Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, the Heilige Kedushas Levi, one of the most famous Hasidic rabbis. And they say that he was, because his avodah, his tefillah, it says in the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, you guys can figure out this technically how this worked. Rabbi Akiva, when he would start Shmona Esrei, he would start in one corner of the shul, and when he would finish Shmona Esrei, he would be in the other corner of the shul, the opposite corner, because there's so much fire and excitement in his lahabas and his davening, and the Kedushas Levi was the exact same thing. He literally would start in one side, end up in the other side. He was all over the place. He had so much passion and fire that he didn't notice what was going on around him. There's one of my favorite stories about that. We're not going to start with Kedushas Levi stories because if we start, we're not going to end. Just one is that when he went to go collect the water for Maim Shalanu. Maim Shalanu is when you bake matzahs, you have to collect water from a natural source, and they have to. Shalanu doesn't mean our waters. It means waters that rested, that overnight they rested. You drew them the day before, so that they're really cool. They're not hot, right? That the water isn't. In English you don't say they, but that the water's not hot, because if it's hot, maybe it could make the matzah, it could make it rise, right? So they want it to be really cool. So we draw it the day before, and by tzaddikim and especially by chassidim, it's a big avodah to go draw the waters for Maim Shalanu, for the matzahs, and the Kedushas Levi, and you do it in a new earthenware vessel. And so the Kedushas Levi was so excited when he drew the waters, and he was dancing. He was also big, and he was dancing strong, and he was dancing with so much bren that he ended up breaking the bottle that he had the water in, and all he had was the handle, but he didn't notice for like an hour. He was dancing with the handle. All the water had been spilled. He's gonna have to do it again, but he was just so tough. Okay, Kedushas Levi. Okay, gentlemen, what is this Sefer Derech HaShem? It's an amazing thing that I'm going to read. I'm only going to read little selections of the introduction, and B'ezrat Hashem, we'll also have time to jump into the first chapter.
Rav Yosef Bidon?
Right.
It says here, Mitoch Hatamato shel Rav Yosef Bidon. We're not on the same book. Is that Rav Bidon?
So that must be a. Let's see.
Rav Yosef Bidon connected to our Rav Bidon?
יכול להיות. Don't know. Right, I also have it here. I forget what he did. He like maybe organized. I don't know what he did. He made references. I think he lived before the war. He's in Lithuania for the Holocaust. In any event, for those of you who have this version, this is Rav Aryeh Kaplan. It's a beautiful translation. We're not going to be doing from the translation. We're doing from the Hebrew. But for those that want to have the translation, you can't get better than Rav Aryeh Kaplan. So the Ramchal starts off the introduction and he says that when a person comes to learn Torah and he comes to learn about God and he wants to start to make his relationship with HaShem, he says that he has to have an organized way of thinking about it and looking at it, right? And this is like I was saying before, how the Ramchal is all about clarifying. And he gives a very deep insight into, if you guys want afterwards, you could look at the introduction. I just felt like I think that it would be cumbersome for us to do the entire introduction together. But he talks about how important it is to structure your learning and understand things in proper context. And if you don't do that, I'm just going to read a sentence here. He says, so if you don't do that, the mind, which is yearning to understand, so then if everything is kind of like just a mishmash of details and it's not put into proper context and proper structural understanding, so he said so that for the mind that's yearning and thirsting for it, it becomes just a heavy weight and there's no joy in that learning, right? I learned another detail, but none of it really makes sense because I don't know how to put it all together, right? Because the person is working hard and he's toiling to learn it, but he becomes exhausted from it, and there's no pleasure in it, right? I'm skipping a little bit more. It comes out that his motivation ends up getting lost, right? Because if you're inspired and you're motivated to learn, but it's just heavy for you because you just feel like I can't grasp a million details without understanding the system, what they're all connected to, and how it all is all structured. So he said that very desire to learn, it leaves him without satisfaction. And the thing that he was yearning for and loving, it ends up causing him pain. He doesn't have any pleasure. There's no satisfaction in it, right? So today we're in a very different generation, right? The Ramchal was really in the beginning of the the scientific revolution, everything, all that stuff that was going on in Europe in that time. For us, when we came to when you come to school, anybody that went to college, so whatever subject it is you're learning it, they have 101, right? Right, and there's the textbook, and they try to give you kind of like a real structured way of looking at everything. They try to make everything into a science today, which is a wonderful thing in the sense that it organizes thought and gives you a way to think about things, right? Doesn't mean it's always correct, right? And many times it's probably not. But the idea of some like to say that the Ramchal was influenced by that because he was really into science also, right? But it's helpful to understand things in the proper context. If you don't understand in the proper context, you don't know where to put it. You don't know how to. We were just talking outside with the rabbi about when people learn Likutei Moharan, for instance, Breslov, the famous teachers of Rabbi Nachman. So many of the Svarim, Likutei Moharan included, they're not in any particular order. It's just all the different teachings that this tzaddik said, right? You don't know which one is supposed to be the most important, which one the Rebbe stressed is this is a central teaching of mine. This should be focused on every day. This is something that he said just once, and it was just kind of like a side thing, So it's very, very hard when you don't have that context and the structure. Skipping on a little bit more, Ramchal says, "V'omnam roshei madregot aminim shmone, v'hem ma sheraui shibachen banoseh." I don't know if we'll just say Ramchal gives kind of like a way how to look at any body of wisdom and be able to put it in context. He says there's 8 different categories. What's the entire subject and what's a part? Meaning what's the the general subject and what's like a subcategory. Haklal ve'aprat, a detail as opposed to a general idea. It kind of sounds like the same thing, but it's really different. Hasiba ve'mesovev, a cause and what's an effect. Ve'anoseh ve'mitchaber, what's the subject and what's something that's just connected to the subject. So it's just the way you see how the Ramchal is kind of like setting up how he came to structure this sefer. And he goes on. He says, and if you really start to think about, if you want to understand everything, there's just way too many details to be able, for our mind to be able to understand, and therefore we have to learn how to categorize things and come up with the rules of things in order to be able to. And once you have a rule, so then you can understand all the different details that follow that rule, right? I saw once Rav Steinsaltz. Rav Steinsaltz is, if you guys, this is if you can get your hands on a copy, this is an English book. Rav Steinsaltz, his Talmud that he translated into English, the reference edition. The reference edition, it was like an introduction to the Talmud, and there's so many amazing things in that book. It's out of print, so you have to find it on Amazon or whatever. It's fairly expensive, worth its weight in gold, gentlemen. It's so many gems in there, especially if you're coming to learn Talmud for the first time and you really want to understand what it is that you're doing here. I highly suggest getting it and reading it from cover to cover. But one of the things he says in there is, what's the Talmud trying to do? Right? If you think about in the yeshiva world, right? Once you've already advanced past the introduction stages, let's say the Baal Tshuva, and you're in the base medrash now. What are people doing in base medrash all day? For the most part, they're learning just Talmud, right? Especially in the Lithuanian tradition, which pretty much has taken over the entire shuk. That's pretty much what people are learning is the Talmud, and the our Rishonim. So that everything's in there, right? Talmud Bavli means the Babylonian Talmud, but Bavli also means that it's balul. It's all mixed up. That it's got everything in there, right? So that even to the extent that the Rambam says that you should learn part of the day you should learn the written Torah, part of the day the oral Torah. He says, but now since we have the Bavli, it has everything in there. It has all the Tanakh in there pretty much. It goes through everything. But if somebody would ask you on the street, what is the Talmud, right? And you know where they love to learn the Talmud? In South Korea.
Yeah.
They love, right? They're really into the Talmud in South Korea.
Do you ever hear like they really learn it, like they did?
I don't know.
I think they have different ones.
Yeah, I'm sure they got some type of,
They just wanted the context how the debate is going and how they learn.
Right. It's they're definitely not getting what we're trying to get out of it. I don't think, I don't know. I don't know what their motivation is, unless, it's not. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about it, but but if somebody would come up to you and say what's the Bible? The Bible is the Word of God. It's passed down through the prophets, right? What's it trying to do? What's the Talmud trying to do, right? If you look at the Bible, the Chumash and the Talmud are extremely confusing if you're trying to understand what's it trying to do. Let's just take the Chumash for a second. Is it a history book? Certainly not. It would be a terrible history book if that was its goal. It would be a total failure. There's so many things that you didn't tell me, right? And you tell me this detail, but not a million other details that are so important, that I'm so curious about, right? Is it a book of laws? Yes, but then so why are there stories? What are these stories about, right? So, what's the Talmud trying to do? Let's skip to the Talmud. So Rav Steinsaltz says a beautiful answer. The Talmud is trying to understand the truth about everything. So therefore, everything's in there. It's not just a moral guidebook. It's not just a ritual law guidebook. It's not just a history of rabbinic, humor. Everything's in there. They want to know everything, right? There's no subject that's off limits, and they want to know what's the truth and what's the context of everything in the eyes of God. That's the idea, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful answer. I've never seen an answer that I liked as much as that one. So the Ramchal is trying to here. He's trying to do what is Jewish thought. What's the world? He's trying to really boil that down, right? Based on not only on the Talmudic tradition but also on the Kabbalistic tradition. Like, what is happening in our lives? What's happening in this world? Right? We're going to see it in the Rambam and the Ramchal's words right now. Let's see. Okay, you guys see the third to last paragraph in the introduction that starts Vehine. Okay, we'll start with you. Vehine. Al pi advarim haele chibarti lecha korenaim chibur katan ze. And therefore, according to these principles, i.e., that if we don't structure and understand things in the proper context, then we're just going to become exhausted and not have pleasure from our learning and from our HaShem, right? And that the more that we understand how everything fits together, the more clear it becomes, etc. According to those principles, I've written this small sefer for you. וכיוונתי בו להציע לפניך כללי האמונה ועבודה על בורא האמונה. And my kavana here was to present before you the general principles of emunah, of our faith, ועבודה, and our service of God, al in a clear, clarified way. באופן שתוכל לעמוד עליהם על נכון, and in a way that you can really be able to grasp them. והצטיירו בשכלך ציור מספיק, and you'll be able to envision in your mind enough, like you'll have enough clarity, מוצל מן הערבוב המבוכה, that it'll take you out of the confusion and the I don't know how to say the
Some ambiguity.
Ambiguity. Oh, is that here? Nice. Right. Even that, like the Yerbuv means that everything's mixed together. You know, if you start, you say, "Oh, I like Rav Steinsaltz's understanding of what the Gemara is trying to do." And now I'm going to pick one up. I'm going to pick up Masechet Pesachim, and I'm going back and forth about the tiny minutia. If the bread was like this or like that, or right, what kind of oven bakes the matzah? Like, this is really trying to understand the truth of God, right? So there is godly truth in there, but you have to be able to understand, like, why is this important, right? What greater context is this in, right? Where am I holding right now? I'll give you also a great analogy that I saw by Rav Kook. That if that Gemara Talmud is like taking one place on the map, right? You go to a little village in Botswana, right? And you go into this one street on that village, and you start to learn this street. What's the street name? What are the families that live here? What's the history of each one of these families? What's the relationship? Who's got how many chickens does each family have? Right? You become a bucky an expert in this one street. You have no idea what the street next door is called. You don't know what its name. You don't even know what the city is called, really, because you're so focused on this, hyper focused, laser focused on this detail, right? That's what it's like to learn Talmud. A page of Talmud, a page of Gemara is like that. Mishnah is like learning general geography. What are the continents? What are the countries? What are the states? What are the cities? What are the capitals? What's the flora and fauna like over it, right? The general things that you learn in general, right? So to the Ramchal says but if you jump in anywhere that you jump in, you get mixed up and you don't know where you are. So I'm trying to save you from that. And that you'll be able to see the roots and the branches and all their different levels in the most possible clarity. Beautiful how he says this, and that they should really be able to sit in your heart, meaning that it'll to give you answers and clarity that will rest well with you in your heart, that'll feel right for you, right, in your mind, and that you'll be able to be connected to them. Umisham v'hala yakalech limtzo da'at Elokim b'chol chalkei haTorah v'perusha. And once you have that basic structure and understanding and clarity, then you'll be able to find. It'll be much easier for you going weiter and learning Torah and all the different parts of Torah to be able to understand God's desire and connect to Hashem in that. V'la'amod hakol sitrei, and therefore you'll be able to be able to grasp all the secrets of the Torah. K'v'yirkat Hashem Elokecha asher yiten lecha, according to the blessing that Hashem gives you, you'll be zocheh to understand the deeper parts of Torah. Right? והנה נשתדלתי לסדר הדברים בסידור שנראה לי יותר נאות, and I tried my hardest to organize it in a fashion that seemed to me the most proper, the most pleasant. ובמילות שחשבתי היותר הגונות, in each word I thought about what would be the most appropriate word to use in each place. לתת לך ציור שלם מהדברים האלה אשר גמרתי להשכילך, to give you the most complete picture of all these things that I decided that I wanted to teach you about. על כן גם אתה, and therefore you also now, אתה צריך אתה לדקדק על כל אלה. You should be precise when you learn. You should be exacting in the language that he uses. ולשמור את כל זה שמירה מעולה, and guard all these teachings very, very closely, meaning hold on to them and stay focused. עד שתמצא מקום שיועיל לך, and then you'll find that it'll help you. It'll be a benefit for you. ואל תוותר על שום דקדוק, and don't wave off, don't pass off any how do you say dikduk?
Specification.
Any specific word that he uses or detail that he adds here. It was all well thought out. It wasn't none of it is just stam. Because maybe if you don't pay attention to one of the details, by thinking that it's not really important, you might miss something that's very vital in your understanding. Rather, this is what you should do. Tidakdek al kol hamilot, be exacting in each one of the words that I used. ותשתדל לעמוד על תוכן העניינים ולעצור כל אמיתתם בשכלך, and try to really understand and grasp what I'm teaching you, and to hold on to their truth in your mind. ומצאת לך מנוח אשר ייטב לך, and then you'll find how do you say מנוח? Respite. You'll find nachat. It'll be calming for you. Right? The Torah is overwhelming, gentlemen. We're not. It's overwhelming. All these halachas. I mean, think about it. Maybe you guys are already used to it being in the base medrash. I've been in the base medrash for a couple of decades now, and sometimes I'm learning something like, how is this relevant to me? Why is this so important? Why do we have to write a whole tractate about this subject? Right? So it gives you calm and understanding. There is a purpose. There is wisdom. There is something here for me. I just don't see it right now. But if I try to put it back into that context. Now, just one thing before we finish this last paragraph here, is that you guys know that the Vilna Gaon said very big things about the Ramchal, and he said that I forget what he said. The first 13 chapters or something of the Mesilat Yesharim. I don't know how many chapters exactly, what number it was. He said there wasn't a single extra word. Every word was absolutely necessary. Meaning, this is when we learn Mishnah. When we learn Gemara, we're exacting in every word. Why did it use this word, not another word? Why didn't it use this other? Why is it missing words that it should have said? Right? And everything is 100% exact, and nothing is just inconsequential. So the Ramchal is really saying that's how you should learn this sefer. Every word is particular. I thought about it. It means something, huh?
It's like a kind of nevuah where every word is holy.
Right. So he wouldn't say on the level of nevuah, because nevuah already gives it like a higher spiritual status, but more just that pay attention. I wasn't long-winded in my teachings here, right? I was precise in my teachings, and therefore you should be precise when you're learning them, because then you'll be able to get the full benefit. And I called the name of this sefer Derech HaShem, the way of Hashem, ki hinei hu klal midrachav yitbarach shema, because this is the general ways of Hashem Yisbarach. Shegila lanu al yedei nevi'av, that He revealed to us through His prophets. V'hodi'anu b'torato, and He let us know this through His Torah. Uvehem mina'aleinu u'minahel kol briotav, and through them Hashem runs the world, and He runs He runs us, and He runs the entire world through these principles. V'chilakti oto le'arba chalakim, and I separated this book into 4 sections. Chelek rishon adaber bo Al Klal Yesodot HaMitziut Upratotav. In the first section, I'm going to speak about the creation in general and the details of the creation. Chelik Hasheni, the second section, B'Hashkachato Yitbarach Shemo, and how Hashem relates to us through His hashkacha, right? Providence, through his involvement in our life and how He runs our world. Chelik Hashlishi, the third one is B'Nevuah, prophecy. The Chelik Revi'i B'Avodah, and the fourth section is Avodas Hashem, our service of God. So the first one is, what is the world? How is it divided? How is it? What are the parts of the world and how does it run? The second one is, how is Hashem involved in this world, in our lives? The third one is prophecy, right? Which we think that's the communication of Hashem into this world. And the fourth one is, what are we supposed to do? How do we serve God? Right? But Derech hazeh lech. Sorry, I skipped the line. Ve'ata achi, and now my brother. Kol mevakesh Hashem, all those that seek Hashem, b'derech hazeh lech, go in this path. V'Hashem yeh imcha, and Hashem will be with you. V'natan lecha einayim lirot, and He's going to give you eyes to see. V'oznayim lishmoa, He's going to give you ears to hear. Niflaot mitorato, wondrous things from His Torah. Amen ken yeh ratzon. So He finishes off in a beautiful way, and giving us a bracha. So if you go in this path, Hashem's going to open things up for you, right? B'ezrat Hashem. Okay. Right. He's the Ramchal was no, which is very interesting because he had so much opposition, but he was known as one of the most pleasant human beings that ever walked the earth. He was so pleasant. And matter of fact, there's letters that he wrote to the Rabbani that was his most major opponents that were like chasing him, basically ruining his life. And he was like, please don't do this. It was just, you could feel his kindness and his humanity in the letter. He said, we haven't even met face to face. First come, let's talk. Let's talk. And I'm sure that you'll find that the things that I'm saying, I'm not saying anything that's against our Torah. I'm not doing anything that's against our Torah. Let's have a sit down. He's just, most people wouldn't be able to withstand such a thing. There's literally, he had to run away from his place of birth because of all the opposition that was caused from one particular rabbi, but not just that one. And he never lost his midot. He always maintained his pleasantness and his beauty. And also that from such a young age, he was the head of a group of Ovdei Hashem in Italy. His way of relating to people. You see this in that also that touches my heart a little bit when he says Achi, calls you your brother. Back then, not everybody spoke like that. Right? Today on the street in Israel, everybody calls you Achi, but therefore back then it was pretty rare. Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh also was very. He used to make a stress about this that of the kind of love that there should be between fellow Jews. It should be with sweetness. It should be with emotion. Shemot Chibad, he say nicknames and loving pet names. We call each other. There should be a. Right? Matter of fact, I'm reading a book right now. The last thing I said, we'll jump in. That book about Breslov, the leaders of Breslov for the last 100 years. And there's lots of stories there how different Yidden in Poland and in Ukraine, how they became Breslov Chassidim. And a lot of them is because they just saw that these guys just love each other so much. People would end up coming to Uman for Rosh Hashanah or to the kibbutz of Breslovers that were in Poland when they couldn't cross the border before the Second World War. They would meet in Lublin in Poland, and they said they were just blown away by the amount of love that and affection that they had for each other. And I don't know if you guys, for anybody that's not European here, in Europe there's kind of a thing, especially I don't know among all Europeans, but European Jewry, there's kind of this thing of like a little bit of a lack of physical warmth. Shalom Aleichem. I love that hat.
What?
I love your hat. We were just talking about you.
God willing, we should be zochet to daven above the kotel and not at the kotel. Jews should avoid the kotel, and they should only go above the kotel.
Amen. Bezat Hashem.
All normal Jews should go above the kotel. Crazy Jews should go to the kotel, only if they're insane. Normal Jews should go above the kotel. Only normal Jews.
Okay, so
nice to see you.
You say European Jews.
European. There was kind of like a stigma that the European Jews were they were very warm in their words, but they weren't very warm in their like even today, you see them out a lot of chassidim. They don't hug. The men don't hug. They're handshake, right? And most of my friends where I live are Sephardi, and they always tell me this.
I'm Sephardi also.
Ah, Sephardi, okay.
By my mother. I go by my mother. Judaism is from the mother, not the father. Only Kahuna and Levi is from the father. My father was a Yisrael, not a Kohen or Levi.
There you go.
I follow my mother. Only my mother.
There you go. So,
Exactly.
so my Moroccan friends, they said, Micha, something got switched. Even though you're Ashkenazi, but really you're Sephardi because you're always kissing and hugging and everything.
Rav Avodah Yosef said that the minhag of Eretz Yisrael should be Sephardi because most of the Jews in Eretz Yisrael are Sephardi. Right. He said it.
Right.
Rav Avodah Yosef. That's all.
Right.
Rav, aren't all Hasidim a little shtickle Sephardi because of Sfard?
No, Hasidim have a nusach Sfard.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
The nusach of this yeshiva is Sfard, isn't it? The official nusach of this yeshiva.
I don't know.
When I was here, the nusach was Sfard. I started learning here in 1984, many years ago.
Wow, 1984.
1984. When my rabbi was elected to the Knesset, Meir Kahana. He was my rabbi. I became Baal Tshuva from his influence.
Wow.
He was my rabbi. But he was liberal. He only said to throw the Arabs out. I believe the Arabs have to be killed, all of them. And the Christians also. Would you agree? Muslims and Christians have to be killed? Because of Amalek?
Rob, there's a video.
We have a mitzvah d'oraita to kill Amalek.
Right.
Don't we?
Right. It's
a mitzvah d'oraita.
Let's save that for another time. Right now
it's a mitzvah d'oraita. Talking about a mitzvah d'oraita.
Amalek, right.
Amalek. Right. Have a good day. Be well, gentlemen. We should all be healthy and happy.
Oh, man, feel good.
If you want to daven for me to be healthy, I need a refuah shlema. My name is Rambam. Reuven Michal ben Miriam. Rambam. Very easy name to remember. Reuven Michal ben Miriam. Rambam.
Refuah shlema.
Say the name.
I said
Reuven Michal ben Miriam. Rambam.
Rob, you want to take the books? Give you a hand?
No, I haven't. Thank you.
He does this.
Thank you. Have a good day, gentlemen. We should all be healthy and happy.
Amen. God bless.
Amen.
So, by the Chassidim, by the Breslovers in there before the war, so they were extremely affectionate, and that was kind of breaking with the the normative behavior of the Eastern Europeans at that time, and so something that struck them, and they really connected them and drew a lot of the hearts close. Okay, gentlemen, here we go. With that introduction, with Reuven's introduction, now we're ready to start Perek Aleph, right? But Boire is Baruch Shemoy.
Which holy sefer?
Derech HaShem.
Good. Baruch Habatzlach.
Amen. But Boire is Baruch Shemoy. This is about God. Blessed be He. Right? You have to be a big person to write to call a chapter about God. Right? I mean, we can all have our thoughts about God, right? But here he is. Ramchal's passing it down. And this first chapter, you'll see right away that each section, each little piece here, it's kind of like nuggets of factual information of our tradition, right? This is our tradition, and I have to say that in previous generations, when I taught this sefer here, I used to skip the first couple of chapters because I thought they were a little bit kind of like terse and a little bit, just too general for people that wouldn't connect it. But then once we learned the whole sefer, I said we can't finish the sefer without completing the beginning of the sefer. So I went back and I learned them, and I saw that it's not that Chalila, that I don't think it's important. I just thought that guys wouldn't connect to it as much, but I think it's really important that we start dafka from the beginning. So here we go. Kol ish miYisrael tzarich sheyamin v'yeda. Every single Jew must believe and know. Sheyesh sham matzui rishon, that there is a first cause. There's a first reality. Kadmon v'nitzchi, it's ancient, precedes everything, v'nitzchi, and it's eternal. B'hu sheimtzi u'mamtzi kol ma shenimtza b'metziut, and He is who created and continues to create all that is in existence. V'hu ha'eloka baruch hu, and this is God. That's what we call God. The first, I don't know what you call it in the world, the first existence, right? That and that. There's so many things that he says in this first sentence. Not only did he create the world, but he didn't create the world and go on vacation. He created the world and he continues to create the world. If you're here at this moment, it's not because you were born in whatever it says on your birth certificate and your passport. It's because at this moment, the Kadosh Baruch Hu created you again, right? And the reason why we say Modeh Ani every single morning, and the reason why we have to say the same prayers every single day. What are you talking about? I already said it yesterday and the day before. Right? Those prayers, they went up. That's enough. Right? But because today you're a totally new creation. You're literally a new creation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created you. He created you then. He created you now. Right? And Hashem preceded the world and He is eternal.
What does it mean that I'm a new creation?
That I'm a new creation.
I've got things from yesterday I'm still married to the same woman that I married.
Right, and the world still looks like the same the same world. Right, I still have the same problems that I had yesterday.
Sure.
Right, so the chizik is that what we have passed down is that even though Kadosh Baruch Hu gave us this I wouldn't say illusion, but He gave us this sense that the world just continues as it goes, is because otherwise we would kind of go crazy. Wouldn't be able to have any consistency in building things up, because it's literally every day would be like being 3-year-olds all the time. Like no moment is connected to the next moment. 2 seconds ago I was crying, like having a crazy breakdown, and now my tears are still hot, and I'm happy as anything right now. Right, no connection between one moment and the other. Right, I hit him. I say he's not my friend, and now I tell you he's my best friend. Right? There would be no what's the word? Continuity, commitment, responsibility, accountability. There'd be no accountability, right? But our tradition tells us don't believe it. Right? Don't believe it to think that you're just an old thing and nothing changes, and that you're right, and the world is just a natural place. Right, according to the even if we will see that the Ramchal says even nature cries out with Hashem in it, but we have to know that we're new, and one of the main reasons why they pass that down to us, because that doesn't change our sense and our feeling in our lives, is to believe Aleph, that your relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is something that's alive right now. He believes in you right at this moment. Why are our hearts beating? Why are our lungs working, right? Why are our brains functioning right at this moment? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is doing all those things because He wants us here right now doing something, right? So connect to Hashem in the present moment, and also don't give up. The second reason why it's so important that to know that teaching is not to give up. Whatever happened before happened, right? You're a new being, right? Right now we're learning the Ramchal, like we said, it's a Gilgul of Rabbi Akiva, right? Rabbi Akiva was 40 years old. Probably had a couple of gray hairs, right? And when he went to go sit in Kita Aleph with the boys, learning Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, right? Rabbi Akiva sat in yeshiva for 8 years. It says he didn't open his mouth one time in 8 years. He just listened for 8 years. You know what that means? From 40 to 48. He didn't say a single word, right? Just listen, right? With the boys, right? Can you imagine what the talk was like in the Kita with the boys? What's this old man doing in here, right? This is what I'm doing, right? And it's so important that we say it every day in Shachris, right? Amechadish b'tuva b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit. And Hashem is mechadesh. He renews the entire creation with His goodness every single day, always, constantly renewing it. Right? It's so important for us to remind ourselves of that constantly. So the first thing is to believe that we have to know that God exists. He created everything. He's creating everything. He preceded the world. Bet. Od tzarich sheyada. I wonder if maybe we should stop here. It's already late. We're just getting started though. What are we going to do? Shalom Aleichem. I think we'll stop because this bet is a little bit longer. What do you guys say for your first taste of the Derech HaShem?
Oh, big.
Yeah, it's gonna get